Hi, my name is Karen Einstein, and I'm with the Independent Publishers of New England. And today on our Thursday morning broadcast entitled Ask the Experts, in which we interview people in the field of independent publishing around New England. And some of the people we've interviewed in the past are designers, publishers, authors, printers, and bookbinders. And today, we're very fortunate to have with us Pam Fenner, one of the co-founders of this wonderful organization. Thank you so much, Pam, for everything you've done for this organization. And Pam is currently running Middlemarch Press, and she does a lot of work with working in the foreign marketing and publishing business for the independent publishers. And I'm really excited to be able to talk with her about that. It's about something about which I know very, very little. And we also have with us today Victoria Sutherland, who is the president of the ForeWord Press, and she does quite a bit of work with foreign relations and the independent publishing field. And she also works a great deal with children's books, but we'll talk with her more about that. So thank you both for being here with us today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Karen.
So first I think we'd start, we only have half an hour, and so I thought we'd start a little bit with Victoria's introduction to exactly a little bit about what she does in terms of the foreign publishing and marketing field. I know, Victoria, you sent a wonderful PowerPoint presentation that is generally kind of 45 minutes about the whole field, and thank you for sending that. And I was wondering what you might think the highlights of that are, as and any questions you might have for Pam, as the two of you work in the same area in that regard. So, Victoria,
okay.
What?
Great, thank you. You know, my first Frankfurt Book Fair was 25 years ago, and I showed up with 5,000 magazines because I heard how large it was.
Wow.
And I sat in my booth and watched people walk by without picking up a magazine. I had no idea what I was doing and what I was doing there, and it was an expensive mistake. But of course, we always learn from our mistakes, and I understood finally that people were at the Frankfurt Book Fair introducing the books that they were hoping to sell foreign rights to, not magazines to give away. So the following year, we offered an opportunity for independent presses to come with us in a collective stand. And we represent the books to all the traffic. There's 100,000 people at the Frankfurt Book Fair.
Wow.
Most of them are on their way to a half-an-hour appointment in one of 8 trade show halls that are there. And as the years passed, we added international shows in London, Bologna, Beijing, the Shanghai Book Fair. About 5 years ago, we bought a company called Children's Books USA, which is a specific concierge service for indie presses at the Bologna Children's Book Fair, which is the largest children's fair around the world in the spring. And that allows National Geographic and Houghton Mifflin and Peachtree and Holiday House and 6 or 7 other clients that we've been working with for the past 15 years to just show up with their rights agent. The booth is set up, and they can get down to business the minute they get there. And so for half-an-hour appointments for 4 days straight, they entertain at a table in front of their stand of books. Different rights agents from Poland, Korea, China, France, Germany, and talk about their books and get interest, which they follow up with when they return home via email. Things have really changed in the 20 years since I've been doing this, of course, because the internet, which we never even heard of in 1998, now allows you to send PDF files across the airwaves, and the transaction happens a little bit more quickly than it did back then, when you would have to mail a hard copy of the book for review purposes. So, and then last year we began a service because I was representing so many independent presses. Unlike Pam, who knows what she's doing, many of the publishers that we brought with us would would get some leads for their books, would have 5 or 6 agents interested in their titles but not know what to do with them once they got them. So we started a service that helped them, develop the negotiation stage of the contracts, and it's not a money maker for us as much as it is a part of our mission to help indie presses, play with the big boys, in the same field with a professionalism.
Okay.
And, Pam, I spoke to her the other day, and she's had a ton of success in China, so, we should let her talk about one of her experiences over there and just how exciting the foreign rights process can be.
That's a great idea, Pam.
Thanks very much. It's always nice to hear what all the new things that are happening with ForeWord reviews and this enterprise that Victoria is doing in helping publishers like me. I'm in a particular educational and parenting niche, and my first foreign rights sale actually came through one of my co-authors. The book was Beyond the Rainbow Bridge, Nurturing Our Children from Birth to 7. That's what it looks like here. Beautiful, nice color. And the co-author happened to tell me, oh, by the way, an assistant for my old nursery school is going to have the book published in Japan. And I said, oh, gee, I didn't know about that. Can you give me your contact information? So I did contact her and said that, in fact, she needed permission. The Japanese publisher needed my permission and that we needed a contract. So that's how it started. And so I have a publishing consultant that I worked with, and also IBPA, Independent Book Publishers Association, also had a sample foreign rights contract agreement. And so that's how my first sale went. And it ended up looking very different, of course, with Japanese characters. I asked if they wanted to use any of my illustrations. I have beautiful pencil illustrations, and they said no, but this is how it looked. And, of course, it opens from the other direction, and it looks, of course, very different than ours. This was very exciting, almost as exciting as when you get your first book from the printer. And instead of illustration, they illustrated it with stick figures. Since then, this book has been translated and published in simplified Chinese, complex Chinese, Korean, and Turkish. So the one from Beijing in simplified Chinese is this one, and that's been my most successful.
Karen is her screen froze, so she'll be back in a second. But I just thought I'd pick up the slack with a question. So Victoria, you have a special deal for IPNE members, right? And probably other organizations, but do you have? Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, we take, I believe we take $25 off the fee for representing your books overseas. So if anybody's interested, like our next show is at the Bologna Book Fair, which is a children's and young adults primarily show. The fee for us to have a very engaged booth presence for you is $305, and we drop it to $215, and we drop it to $190 for
nice.
Your members.
So, and Bologna's in Italy. What sort of books would you think would be appropriate to make that investment for?
If you have, I wanted to back up a little bit because I thought that maybe it was important for us to talk about what foreign rights actually are for some people who aren't familiar with that. And it can be translations, reprints, distribution, a co-publishing deal, or other services that you work out with a publisher in another country. And it's really important for you to think about the reasons why you want to sell your foreign rights before you get involved, so that your expectations are couched properly. You know, Pam had an extremely wonderful situation happen with her, but she has a great topic that is an international interest to people. Are you doing it for the money? Are you interested in, or are you interested in getting your word out to a global audience where it might not be so much money? And I have a couple clients right now who are mortified about the options that they're getting from China, but they're, you know, the benefit of getting your book in China is so many more people are going to read it for maybe not so much as much money as you would get from France and Germany. So that's what an agent helps you with, is figure out the topics that are interesting and what countries are willing to pay. So the Italian book fair is based in Italy, but it's not. But everybody from around the world comes who are publishing children's picture books and young adult fiction and nonfiction. Now, some of my clients that I meet with are agents that I work with at the Frankfurt Book Fair and Beijing Book Fair as well, who are doing business in adult fiction and nonfiction, but they're specifically coming to see the titles at the children's picture books and young adult. You know, I could also go on to tell you a little bit about you know, what the Chinese are interested in, and the Asian markets in particular, are children's picture books that are have a lesson or a life philosophy that they, you know, some morals included in the topic of the book. They like the teacher's guides that appear in the back a lot. APA Imagination Press is one of our clients, and ADHD and some of those psychological issues that children have were not even acknowledged 5 years ago in China, but now they're becoming part of the vernacular, and so their books are very interesting to the Chinese agents. Some countries don't like talking animals, but then other countries do love talking animals. I have a guy from Disney that comes by every year who is always looking for, you know, another character that they might turn into a movie, and that deal doesn't happen right away, but it might happen 4 or 5 years ago or from now. So there's all kind, you know, TV, film, and publishing agents are at the Bologna Book Fair.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. A bit of a technical difficulty there. I apologize for that. I was wondering for the let's say for the typical fiction writer, not typical, sorry, for someone who's writing fiction or nonfiction, what would you say might be their first step in considering selling to a foreign market?
For me, is that the question? A question for me?
For both of you, yeah.
Okay. I'll let you talk, Pam.
No, I was going to say, Victoria, go ahead, because you obviously, when you go to, I've not been to any of the foreign fairs, and so you have somebody coming up to your booth and inquiring about a particular title they see on a shelf.
Correct. So when we usually we have about 100 titles or so that we bring to each show, and an agent will have 50 or 60 books that they're representing at the spaces in our stand. And they usually have a binder of sell sheets with them, so that they can, if there's when an agent sits at their table and they know that this Korean agent is always looking for this book, so they can pull the sell sheet out, which is a quick view of the metadata, the pub date, where the rights might have been sold someplace else, and it's a pass along to the agent who is visiting. They usually take back all the information that you provide them and all the other booths that they visited, and within a month get back to you and say, we're interested in these 3 titles. Can you send us a watermark PDF, which is a version of your book in a PDF format that has, to avoid being pirated, you know, it's not 100% protection, but it makes it very difficult for something to be reproduced if there's, you know, a shadow logo in the background of every page. Mm-hmm. And then the next step is you typically wait another couple of months until you hear back from them and say, I have a client who is is interested in this deal, and here are the terms of the offer that they're making. And at that point, I'll go back to my client and ask if it's, you know, recommend or not recommend or make some changes to the deal based on my experience with that particular country. And then the long process of the negotiation being mailed, you know, a physical copy being mailed back and forth to each publisher for signatures. And then you get a advance on your deal before you hand over any of the content of your book and the pictures and things. Now, the publisher who buys the rights to your title is in a position not to use the cover art that you've chosen, may come up with different illustrations inside, and they will also handle the expenses of translating the book. So you just make money, but you also have to be, you know, willing to give up your baby a little bit, because the Chinese love red, and your book is yellow, and that's the color of death. And so these kinds of things, cultural things, come in when they're republishing and reprinting, but they're only making these kinds of decisions based on what they know will sell in their country.
Oh, wow, that's a fascinating aspect that I would have never considered. The whole color aspect and what that animal represents and all of that other sort of anthropological elements. That's fascinating. And Pam, what would you say for in your experience in working in the foreign market, what would you say were some of the most exciting things and some of the most frustrating things, and how that would? Mm-hmm.
Well, certainly, as Victoria said, having the internet has made it easy. It also sometimes has its challenges, particularly if you're dealing with someone whose English may not be as clear, or sometimes you're wondering if they understand what you're saying. So my communications in my emails, for instance, are always very, very simple. One of the things I found out with the Chinese market was some of the technical things they have to go through, registering copyrights, making sure my copyright is good. If they want to use a co-publisher, that takes time when they negotiate. I also wonder, I mean, I haven't, in my contracts I say it has to, there's a clause in there about that it has to be a fair and clear and true, I can't remember the verbiage, translation, but I don't speak or read simplified Chinese, so and I could probably find one through University Network out of Boston, but I haven't done that. One of the things that is important, though, I would say, is to know what their first print run will be, what the price of the book will be, so that your advance, I always, and let's say that there's a percentage of the royalty, for instance, that I might get 8%, for instance, that once I know what the selling price is and what the number of the first print run will be, then I ask for an advance of what that royalty would be for that whole first print run. So I have that in hand before it's published. There's also a clause that they have to, for instance, publish the book within 18 months. If they don't do that, then maybe some of the rights revert back.
Oh, all right.
That's a really good idea. A lot of the Chinese publishers who are growing very quickly right now as that country develops are buying rights, except they're sitting on them without publishing them, just so that they can have it and their competition doesn't have it. So it's really important. That's a great idea, Pam, to put structure into the contract that suggests they do it at a certain time period.
Wow, Victoria, that's fascinating. Could you get into that a little bit more? I'm not sure if I quite understand. So they're kind of buying the futures of publishing.
I will. The Chinese market is exciting and huge and super complicated. So you have to get into it with a bit of caution. In fact, I don't try to begin to understand the complexities of a government-run industry, which is involves a publishing house being granted in every province, and that publishing house is the one who dictates the ISBN numbers for the rest of the companies in that province. I work with a co-agent who knows the players and the publishers and their backgrounds and their trustworthiness, so that I can have things taken care of without worrying about piracy. But they have told me that the publishing industry is growing so quickly, and they're so thirsty for content to satisfy the billions of children that are being born over the next generation, that they are buying futures basically, but they'll hold on to it if there isn't and not publish anything until later on if there isn't something in the contract that says do it in the next year to 18 months, and 18 months is a long time, I think.
Right.
Well, in one of my books, for instance, they asked for an extension, and that's for a different book. This is for my Waldorf Education and Family Guide, and they've been sitting on it for 5 years. Wow. And they've asked for an extension, and the communication is not as regular as with my other publishers. The other thing I wanted to say was that I never know if something might be taken out, if there's something that might not fit with their culture. There might be a chapter that's taken out, or maybe some of the wording might be different. Mine's a parenting book. I doubt that there's much change, in as much as it seems to be, the messages seem to be universal. And now, as Victoria said, the population is going to be jumping because now they're allowing a second child in a family. Mm-hmm. So that will impact. But I've learned a lot from Victoria just now about dealing with the Chinese market.
Well, I mean, and foreign rights are the same with anything in independent publishing. Publishers have to decide what their time value is, how much time they have to sell foreign rights. If, like Pam, if it's interesting to them and they want to do it, that's one thing. But if it's not her specialty and she'd rather be publishing books or, working out finding her next title, then maybe it's a good idea to find an agent who can help sell your foreign rights. And their fee is typically 15%, like a salesperson is, of whatever the royalties are. But like a good salesperson, their fees are worth it if they're bringing you more dollars in than you could have done on your own. So the cost shouldn't be an issue. But those are the kinds of questions that a publisher needs to ask themselves if they want to get involved in the market. Are you ready to jump in? Because it takes a long time to develop the relationships, put the databases together, it's a relationship business, and you have to be ready to devote some time to that.
Okay, that's a great point. And we've been talking a lot about China and Asia, and I was wondering, how does that fit into the global market? Is it a large percentage? Where are the other markets that are that might be of interest to authors and publishers and illustrators in the United States?
Well, as you know, the world market economy has changed a lot in the last 5 years. It used to be the BRIC countries that were Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Those were the top countries that are right now. Brazil is undergoing some economic difficulty. Russia, the same thing. They've closed a lot of their bookstores down, and so their publishing industry has faltered a little bit. Also, right now, Greece and Spain obviously are not the best markets for selling rights in. But you still have to keep those relationships, so when the economy does begin to take off again, they're going to be buying books. Germany is strong, and France is strong, and the UK, Australia is strong, like China is right now. Where else? India is... I haven't had much experience with India because most of them they have English language speakers, and so they want to do sales of your book, distribute your English book in India. And they also are not willing to pay a very high price for books there, so I haven't had much experience with Indian right sales.
Okay.
I'd like to ask Victoria a question.
Right.
When I was first learning about foreign rights, the advice people said at various conferences and so forth was to, for instance, if it was Spanish rights, that you'd sell the Spanish rights to Spain, or you'd sell the Spanish rights to Mexico, versus worldwide rights, because if you sold the rights through various countries, it was, rather than worldwide, that you could probably receive more money. It might be more lucrative. But now with the internet and how easy it is to pass files and that sort of thing, I'm wondering if that has changed. One of the things I noticed in mine, for instance, with China, with simplified Chinese, is that they cannot sell my that simplified Chinese book outside of mainland China. So even though there might be people in other countries who might like to read a version in simplified Chinese, because of whatever government restrictions in mainland China, they can't sell it beyond that. But in looking at future contracts, I'm wondering whether or not people should just consider in their contract this is a worldwide rights, rather than for a particular country itself, particularly Spanish. I'm thinking of now, because I really need to get into that market.
I have to admit that I don't have that robust of a background to answer your question. It feels like that's the way it's going, but at the moment, you would have to have a really good agent representing you around the world to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You mean,
No, go ahead, Pam.
do you mean an agent who would sell the individual rights, that it's just better to sell the world?
I think so. I mean,
rights. Yeah.
Even right now, it used to be English language rights. The British would buy the English language rights and get Australia, New Zealand, and that's not happening anymore. The Commonwealth has been broken up, and they're selling. Some agents are selling those separately.
I see. I will also put a plug in for Victoria, because I did this on my own, and every January I send out a form and a letter to each of the companies that have translated my books, asking for how many did they sell during the year, did they reprint, if they've gone beyond my advance, I'm expecting a certain royalty, and that does take time. And to have an agent handle this, and have co-agents in other countries who know how the system works, I think it's a great benefit for authors and independent publishers like myself.
Okay,
Karen,
wonderful. Yeah, Charlotte?
This is your invisible friend. We had a question about translations. Should a publisher make translations in this country and then sell that, or just let the foreign buyer handle it? Or is there a way to distribute foreign language public books in overseas yourself?
My recommendation is to not bother with that expense or the cost. The people who are buying the rights take on that financial responsibility, and they work with people who are specialists in translation. So, I mean, if you want to do it, you can and cover that expense. I can't even imagine trying to get distribution in another country with a translated Chinese book, because you can't get it there. They won't let you. You have to go through their government-run distribution companies.
Okay.
And I just also want to point out that simplified and complex Chinese, in case people were wondering, complex Chinese is what they speak and read in Hong Kong, and simplified Chinese is the rest of China.
Taiwan is also complex Chinese. That's where my complex Chinese translation has been published. I want to ask about ebooks. My particular contracts have all just been for printed books. Haven't gone into the ebook market yet, but I probably should be, which I say in a contract needs to be a separate contract, but maybe Victoria, you can say something about that.
Yeah, I've just been including a clause in the new in all of my recent contracts for ebooks, and because they want to buy the ebooks too, especially in China and Asian countries and India, where mobile phones are,
Sure.
are the thing. So the royalty percentage is not quite as much, but you might as well just let them have, they have both. It's an addition. They pay additional fees for the ebook rights.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have a comment and a question kind of on the translation. I worked for decades in the field of English as a foreign language in Europe, and also as a translator, and I have I speak a variety of foreign languages, but I would never dare to translate anything from English into another language. But I know that a lot of people loved help in translating into English, and it's a lot easier for me to take a foreign language and translate it into my own language than it is for me to do the other thing around. And I know that's kind of a typical thing among translators, and that's probably why the foreign publishers would prefer to have their own translators work on things, because it's a lot easier to translate into your language, particularly because, Victoria, what we were talking about earlier with the all of the cultural things, colors and animals and themes, etc. It's very difficult to learn all of that as a student, to learn someone else's culture. But the other thing that I was thinking is that I know that there's a huge foreign market for anything written in English, which is written in a somewhat simple English for kids to understand, especially getting back to what we were speaking about in the beginning, the whole children's book market. And so I'd kind of like to return to that for a second, because I know, Pam, some of the stuff that you're doing with Waldorf teaching and pedagogy is just brilliant. I really like a lot of what you've done. And I know that, Victoria, you were talking about the children's market as well. And we were talking a little bit about the children's market in China, which I find fascinating, and what you were talking about, the simple and complex Chinese. What about the children's market in the other countries? For the market for children's books, I should say. Is there anything that you would recommend to a children's book author who would like to publish abroad or write for publication?
If you want to have your English book distributed in another country for English as a second language markets in Europe or Asia, it's best to find a distributor who can help you with that. But selling the rights to your book for a publisher to take care of the financial end of things and get it into their distribution stream is the second alternative to getting your book into foreign markets. Certainly, the English is a second language. It's embarrassing as Americans that we only know basically one language, but foreigners are trying to teach their children English, and children's picture books in English are big that way.
So I have a question, Victoria. This is Charlotte. Let's see, what children's picture books? Oh, what percentage of the books that are exhibited by ForeWord at a place like Frankfurt go on to be adopted as by your foreign rights sold for those?
Right. We have about 25% of the people who send their books with us actually get some deals from our booth, but sometimes it's higher, sometimes it's lower. We can't guarantee what people are going to like, of course, when they come. The people that I pick up as our clients are people who are in my the specialties that I have are young adult, children's picture book, health, body, mind, spirit, and some business books. I'm very choosy about who I take on as a client, and those are the books that I know the best. Somebody else asked about when the Chinese fairs are. The Beijing Book Fair is in late August, and that is an adult and children's book fair. And there's a second fair in Asia in Shanghai that is devoted to in November to children's. It's the Chinese Children's Book Fair. Those are the only two that we go to. There's some in Tokyo and Taiwan and other Asian countries too, but these are by far the two biggest.
Okay, great. Thank you, Victoria. To both of us, we'd like to wrap up in the next few minutes. So is there anything that we haven't spoken about today? I know there's immense amounts of things we haven't spoken about today that you think might be particularly pertinent to the members of IPNE, and how do you see IPNE's role in kind of helping to help the independent publishers of New England, particularly, to enter into the foreign market?
Well, speaking personally, last year's IPNE conference last September in Portsmouth, we had Victoria Sutherland, and ForeWord magazine is one of our sponsors, and they had a table there, and Victoria was one of our speakers. And I think it was through that that interaction that we learned not only was Victoria head of ForeWord Reviews, which we've been following ever since it was started a couple of decades ago, but this was an area of her expertise. And I think I will probably be following through with something with Victoria myself. So I think personally I benefited from this. Obviously, this kind of Google Hangout with video and opportunity to pass on information without Victoria having to come here is part of the benefits of this kind of technology. I don't have an IT person like Victoria does, but go ahead, Victoria.
I would only mention that I have given this presentation at Author U and some other events before, and that we're trying to get. I'm going to be at the Frankfurt Book Fair when your next conference is, unfortunately, but Seth Dellin, who is a new hire for us in our audience development area, is trying to put a program together, and I'm going to recommend that he maybe take this presentation that I do and expand on it and do it for your group this October.
Okay, wonderful.
I would like to just add that there's something very satisfying. You know, Victoria mentioned that there are many benefits for having your book translated and printed overseas to other cultures. And a lot of it is personal satisfaction, that whatever it is you're doing, in my case, a parenting book, if it's going to help young families in their parenting journey, this is more than met its mission for me, the publisher, and for my co-authors. And there's great satisfaction in knowing that, not necessarily on the amount of advance that I get or royalty. And I'm glad Victoria mentioned that early on, but just like to say that for other people watching.
Sure.
Okay.
And, you know, if anybody has any further questions or something that comes up an hour later that you can never think of when you need to, I'm happy to answer them via email or phone. If you guys want to pass along my information, that'd be fine.
Okay. Thank you very much to both of you. Again, we're speaking with Victoria Sutherland of ForeWord Reviews and Pam Fenner of the Michaelmas Press. And also Pam Fenner, co-founder of this wonderful organization, Independent Publishers in New England. So thank you both for joining us. And next week, on the 10th of March, we have Transmedia Express with Melissa Ludke. And she's working on a fascinating book where she has an adopted Chinese daughter, and she went back to the town that she adopted her daughter from, and basically with her daughter created a transmedia book which has lots of videos and sound recordings, etc., speaking with, for example, the woman who would have been her daughter's English teacher about kind of what life is like in the town. It's a fascinating piece that she's working on. And the week after that, the 17th of March, on Ask the Experts, we will be hosting Angela Ball from IVPA, the executive director, in a program entitled Oh for the Love of Metadata. So we look forward to those two programs, and thanks again to our two guests, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate being here.